Okay, welcome back to Battleborn Duckers. This is episode number. What episode are we on, Brian?
I have no idea.
Me neither, man, but it's going to be a good one.
More than a handful.
Because we have the one and only Gannon in the garage tonight, the garage studios. He's looked over our duck blind. He signed off on it, which was good.
He said he's already limited out of it, so
he says that he probably won't use it because he's already living out and gone home. But so we brought Gannon in tonight, and as you know, Gannon is kind of me and Brian's mentor. Even how old are you now, man?
18.
Even though he's only 18, he's been mentoring me for about 5 years now. So we brought him in to talk about this last season, what happened with it, his thoughts on it, and kind of tell him some stories that we got into trouble with, and maybe he could help us not get into trouble. So we're just going to do a recap of this year and figure out what we could do better this year again. And so first off, you had a phenomenal year, man.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how your year was.
It was my best year yet, for sure. I mean, started out in Idaho from beginning of October till I left there beginning of December, and then finished it off down here and was killing birds all throughout.
Do you think it slowed down at the end of this year with birds-wise?
You could definitely tell that they were getting pretty overhunted. I mean, they've been hunted for however many months, but towards the end I feel like it got pretty slow. But
well, they just weren't. I mean, the birds, they weren't moving, so you weren't getting new birds in. So we kind of stalled out. Normally we'll get that push of pintails in, they'll go, and then we'll get a push mallards in. And during that hunt test, there were still pintails sitting on the pond. So I mean, the pintails never left.
Yeah.
So it just tells you that the season was kind of goofy to start with.
Well, it's been that way for like the past 2 years, hasn't it? Where we didn't have that winter freeze up north and the birds just didn't push down too much.
Yeah, I think we didn't get that big storm up north until after our season ended.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still happening right now, but we never got it.
Yeah. So what do you do with late season birds, man? So that's what I had a hard time with is, man, I tried the coot thing and it worked okay. I mean, we shot a couple over it. I mean, we were shooting limits, but
yeah.
What's your trick with late season birds? What do you do?
Try to not go to where everyone's going, obviously, because obviously late season birds, they're going to be smarter than they have been for the whole year. But that was just kind of our plan, is try to get to where they haven't been hunted a lot, where they haven't been seeing decoys and mojos and been called out every single day. And it worked, but it was still a grind for sure.
Now, when it comes to that, like getting to where people haven't been, I mean, like people think, okay, easier said than done, but I don't think people understand like how many years of experience like you have, like since you were born. You've been hunting with your dad, but your dad has how many years of experience?
He basically started when he was 12 or 13.
Yeah, so he's a little bit older than me and Brian. Well, maybe younger than Brian, older than me. Dude, look how old that guy is, dude. Looks like Grandpa Tom with that big old gray beard.
All right, Junior.
Hey, don't make me put my Crocs on for you. Anyways.
Only if you have the dingle balls.
That being said, like people think, like I don't know where to go other than these places. That just takes time and takes a lot of research. And you shouldn't expect these guys that have hunted for years to give up their honey holes.
Well, I think the part of the problem is people are lazy. So people don't go where there aren't people because it's more than 10 minutes away from their house.
Yeah.
And so you got to be willing to make that sacrifice. I know we'll drive 3 hours just to get to a spot just that has a little bit better hunting without so many people. Gannon kind of does the same thing. We also know some areas that it takes a little bit more effort. You're just not walking in and sitting in a pre-made blind. You're going to have to get out there. You're going to have to put some cover up and all sorts of stuff. So,
and even when we go to those places, we have been skunked a lot of the time after driving 4 hours.
Well, it's hard because it's not like you're going to go out and scout that the day before, right?
Exactly.
So you're going to get up there and it's kind of you're at the mercy of whatever the birds are doing. So you may go somewhere where the birds were a couple weeks ago, but they're not in there anymore. So it's just kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah. So let me give you the first case scenario. So the beginning of the season, me and Brian had our favorite spot. We have the spot up in an animal that we really like, dude. And we get out there early in the morning and we haul our kayaks out of the thing. You kayak hunted with me once. It's a good time.
Yeah.
We haul our kayaks out of the truck and we get down there and it's just mud. It's just mud. And so at that point, me and Brian, we're like, we're not giving up. We're already here, you know. And so that might have been our first mistake. But we were like, we're not giving up. And so we slushed through the mud until we got there an hour and a half before shooting light, and we were throwing decoys out at shooting light. And no ducks came in. None.
Well, if it would have come in, they would have been still 150 yards through the mud till we could even hit water almost, you know. It was pretty nasty. I mean, there was nowhere to really put effective cover up, and you know, we still hunted that day. We just didn't hunt the spot we wanted to hunt. Did a little bit more jump shooting. I think we only had one hunt this year that we just completely gave up on, and that was that one when we took a bunch of kids out over to Nesbitt and had a bunch of idiots hunting next to us. It was freezing cold. People were shooting at stuff that they shouldn't have been shooting at, and it got to the point where Ron looks at me. We've probably been there maybe 2 hours, and Ron looks at me and goes, "Are you about done?" I'm like, "I put my gun away 30 minutes ago, dude."
Anyway, so back to that story again. And if you were in our same situation and you showed up to a water hole that the water is way out past the cover, would you just turn around and try to find a different spot then? Have you done that before?
Yeah, I would have probably. We've done it a couple times where we show up and there's ice, where we didn't think there was going to be ice, and we just waited it out till it was shooting light, see where the birds are working, and then go in from there.
Okay, so if you show up to a spot and you're like, oh, this isn't what I thought the spot was going to be like, you'll just tone it back a little bit, other than like you won't hit it hard and try to get out there and see, oh, well, see if we can work. You have more patience and you stop, and then you wait till the sun comes up, see what the birds are doing, and then you focus on that.
Oh, but in our defense too, I mean, by the time we got to where you could see where the water was, we were kind of committed, right? It took us about half an hour to just get through the reeds to see kind of what we were looking at. And so it's hard to judge, especially when it's dark. It's hard to judge where the water is unless you scouted it before.
Yeah, but I think the same with Gannon's point, that if you show up to a spot and it's not the way you want it to be, whether it be ice, whether it be mud, whether it be another hunter, it's not that bad of an idea to take a step back, wait for that sun to come up and watch the birds.
Yeah, if you know. I mean, if you know. But that's the thing, is you got to know. And once you're kind of committed to it, that option kind of comes off the table a little bit. So then you're coming back like we did. Is once we got in there and realized it wasn't going to work, we just pulled back and reset and made another plan. And that's kind of what you got to do.
We didn't kind of. We sat in the mud for like 2 hours before we decided to do that because we could not breathe, man. Like, I was like laying in my back in this mud in a cattail. And it sucked, man, having to haul the decoys out there. And like, anyways. So I think next year, if we're in that situation where I show up and it's not a spot that I like, I probably will do like Gannon does and just either move on or, you know, take a step back and try to be patient, which I don't got a lot of.
Well, that one we would have been better off just to go where we know there's some blinds and some other areas that we could have either jumped into a blind or jumped into some brush somewhere else where we know it was a huntable spot. So, you know, that particular area, there's some bulrushes pretty close that we could have hunted. And that's the hard part, is you kind of, and this was early season. It was the first time that the first weekend we could hunt that spot, because that opener, we were somewhere else for that opener. But so we got up there and we hadn't seen what that spot was like at all. So there's kind of.
Yeah, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot by not scouting. How we had opportunities to scout that. We could have done on the way back from other trips. Now it's dark.
Well, and we knew the water was low next to it, right? Because we were up the weekend before, and there was actually no water in one of the lakes at all. I mean, they were just starting to fill that particular body of water. And there were some fires that were pretty heavy that kind of drained a lot of that up there. And even the spot that we hunt that's normally pretty passable up further north it's not. I mean, we did a lot of getting out of the boat and pushing the boat through mud. There wasn't a lot that was accessible hunting, you know, where normally it is. And so it was just this year was a rough year just trying to find huntable water sometimes.
I think it was a learning experience because we haven't had that experience of the water levels being that low before and knowing what to do. Okay, next scenario, what Brian was talking about. We got up early. We got to a spot. It was full of people. And we talked to some people and they're like, we're okay with you hunting over here. And so we went over there and hunted. And like Brian said, every single stupid bird that they could see with their eyeball was shot at. What do you do in that scenario?
Oh, that's hard.
No, you can just be honest, because I know you'll go yell at them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to talk to them because, I mean, if they're shooting at birds at 200 yards, then there's no chance. They're ruining it for absolutely everyone. So either you talk to them and they don't do it anymore, or you leave. You have two options, basically. I mean, you're not going to have birds that are working you, they're going to shoot at, so you're not going to kill birds. So it's either
you got any stories about you going and talking to people and not going right?
No, it's usually went pretty good, actually.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Give me a scenario.
Let's see. One time at the game farm, we had a dude doing that, and my dad talked to him, and he just legitimately had no clue what he was talking about. He did not know what he was hunting. He just had no clue what he was doing. My dad talked to him. He realized what he was doing, fixed it, and we all started killing birds.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the thing is I think a lot of these guys, especially this year, it seems, a lot of them just have no clue.
Yeah.
They have no clue what they're shooting at. They have no clue what's an effective shot. They have no clue what their range is. You know, I mean, you've got guys setting up on decoys on other people's ponds, and you know, it's just, I think it's a lack of education is a big part of it, and some of it is just people that, you know, they've shot at a bird that was 150 yards up and had the magic BB, and now they think they can kill everything in sight. So, you know, and that's we ran into that situation where we were hunting, and you know, I mean, it almost went to blows with a couple other hunters, and
we told you about this, right?
Yeah, and so people just want to be able to hunt. They want to be able to hunt effectively, and if you're out there just blowing everything out of the water, nobody's gonna be able to hunt around you. Yeah, that same day it was, you know, geese coming into our decoys, and they were coming right for us. I mean, just made a beeline for us, and then some idiot shoots 200 yards up, and that was it. Those geese are gone. That was our opportunity for that morning.
And you know how many flights you get maybe 3 that if you sail that whole day.
Yeah.
That was the first flight. That was one of the 3 shots we had. So, no, yeah, I agree with you, but I'm always apprehensive to go over and be like, hey, do you know that you're being an idiot? Like, do you know that you ruin it for everybody? And so I'll sit over there, man, and I will get worked up. Ask Brian. I'll start kicking stuff in the blind and saying mean things, and Brian just encourages me. He's like, I bet you won't go talk to him, Ron. I bet you won't.
I'm like, I'll video it.
and by the time I'm ready to go over and talk to him, man, like I'm no longer a reasonable person. So maybe you're right. Maybe like in that situation, you just like did your dad do it right when it started? Like right when they started, or did he let him do a few things?
No, yeah, you got to see how it plays out for a second. Yeah. But I mean, there's definitely a time and place to get mad and get pissed off for sure.
Well, in Overton's, I mean, it's pretty easy to get mad for hunting Overton just because.
There's some patience out there, man.
I mean, you can literally.
You can't get mad though if you know it's going to happen. Right?
Yeah, you literally can follow the birds around that game preserve because as soon as they start flying, you'll hear shots every time they pass a blind. You hear them getting shot at, and every time they're going up. So the first guy they weren't shootable. The second guy they really aren't shootable, and by the 5th guy, it's just like it's almost comical. I mean that
is comical.
That cartoon you posted the other day was perfect for Overton. I mean,
did you see that one?
50 hunters shooting at a bird, and every single one of them misses. You know, I mean that's just normal. I mean, and the other one is they're shooting and airplanes are falling out of the sky. And that's kind of unfortunately that's kind of the Overton way, I guess. I mean, we joke around. We'll be hunting somewhere else, and a bird, you'll just barely see a bird, and you're like, hey, that's Overton shootable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's an Overton range. Yeah, so that was another mistake we made. And then we hunted in unison with the U a lot at a certain location, and you guys every single time you call us, and you'll be like, "We're going home. We got him." And I'm like, you know what, guys? Good for you. I didn't say that.
Jared was trying to sink the boat at that point. He was so mad.
He's like, I'm taking this boat with me. Anyways, pointing the gun at the bottom. Anyway, so what do you think, what do you think the number one rule when you're hunting out a boat is? What's the number one thing, and you've told me before, what's the most important thing when you're hunting on the boat?
Your hide.
Your hide.
100%.
When I think we put ourselves right off the bat at a disadvantage to the Hymus crew. Everybody on the Hymus boat is a seasoned hunter. They're gonna hide. They're not gonna move.
I guess
We
that's
take
true.
a new hunter out pretty much every time we're out there, and there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of not hiding. There's a lot of flashing guns and waving flags and stuff like that. So it puts us at a disadvantage right off the bat.
Yeah.
How do you talk to have you ever brought out new hunters besides me? I mean, you brought out me. I had when I went out with the Hymuses, I had a Mossberg pump that I couldn't fit 3-inch shells in because I was shooting 2.25. So I'm out with Gannon on the bank, cutting a stick, and Gannon's like, "Don't mess with your gun when you're outside of the truck." He's like, "Don't mess with your gun." You remember telling me that?
Yeah.
You're like, every single time you mess with your gun outside of your house, it breaks and you'll never get it to work again. Anyway, so I cut down my pencil that was in my gun as my plug on the bank. I was like whittling it with a pocket knife.
You have an issue with missing parts of your guns. Do you ever notice that?
No, I don't notice it because it always works out. Anyways, and Gannon takes me out as a new hunter. What do you like? He's like he looked at me and he's like, "If I see you move, I'm going to punch you in the mouth."
I did
He's
not say that.
He's like, "Just look at the ground. We'll tell you when to get up. Don't even try to look for the ducks." And I was like, "Okay." And so I looked at the ground the whole time because I didn't want to ruin it for anybody. But have you ever been out with new hunters that have ruined it for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. If you take new people out, they don't know. So you gotta communicate pretty thoroughly about what's going to happen because obviously they've never seen it. They don't know what to think about it, what to do. So you just got to communicate, tell them what to do, when to do it, and basically have a guy that is on them the whole time, that kind of watches them, helps them the whole time, and just try to work with them with it.
So you actually have a guy dedicated to watching that new hunter.
Yeah.
I remember who my guy was. It wasn't you. Who was it? I think it was Tyler. Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor sat right next to me the whole time. He's like, "Don't look up.
Yep.
Don't look up."
Dude, I'll smack you in the face if you look up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, you did some hunting with him this year, didn't you?
Oh yeah. That was me and Taylor we were killing a lot of birds together up there.
Killing all birds. Did you make any mistakes this year, man?
Yeah. Quite a bit actually.
Like, what'd you do?
We had some spots. We showed up to a field opening day of goose up there in Idaho, and we were about 30 minutes behind schedule, like where I wanted to be and where our group wanted to be, and we didn't think about it, but there's kind of a spot where it's notorious for people to get double permission on a spot, and we pulled up and there was a group already there, and they were first there. We talked to them, and they're like, "Sorry, we don't have any more room," so we left, and if we would have probably been 30 minutes earlier or just thought about it in the first place, we would have probably had that spot and killed a lot more geese than we did.
You would have showed up earlier than if you'd known.
Yeah, for sure. I would have been there at 2 a.m.
Oh man. So let's talk about late season. I know we talked about this a lot, but I'd like to revisit it with you. What are your thoughts on decoys? We had one gentleman on the show who's a very seasoned hunter, and he said that at one point he put it how many mojos?
Like 7 or 8 mojos and like one regular floater. And the reason he did it is just
It's different.
he was going to try it. It was a different look, and it worked. And he said he tried it again, and it didn't work. So it's just, I think that's part of it is you throw in a different look. You know, if they haven't seen it, chances of you decoying them in just out of curiosity is probably a little bit better. You know, you get late season and they've seen just about everything you could throw at them, right? Everybody's using either a spinner or a floater set, and you know you can only set up your decoy so many different ways. Whether you set it light, you set it heavy, set it somewhere in between. You know, we a couple of years ago went to doing a lot more ripplers on ours,
A lot more motion in the water.
and that worked for a while. This year it was late season, so we'll have to see how it works next season. But we started throwing some flappers into the mix too. You know, just because it's something different, you know, and so you're looking for that advantage on what's going to turn those birds' heads versus every other spot.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on late season decoying ducks? What do you do? I don't want you to give away your best secret, but if you want to give people tips,
I don't think it's much of a secret, but we always try to go light. I mean, they're seeing 2 to 4 dozen decoys on a tiny little spot with couple mojos. They've seen that how many times? I think we shot a 4-man limit over, I I think it was 9 ducks, 9 floaters.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just light, something they don't see often. We didn't have a mojo out that day, I don't think. Just, that's the thing. Like, his setup was something different, and it worked that day, but the next day it could not work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It's always a crapshoot when you're changing something up a little bit. I mean, we did that youth hunt with Cody and Tyler and what's the other kid? I can't even think of his name now.
Randy, man.
Randy, and we set a dozen decoys. That was it. And the birds had 2 weeks off, and that dozen decoys. I mean, they were just hammering those decoys, especially early in the morning before people started shooting them. They were coming right into the decoys, and the kids killed it for the first hour or two. I mean, they just were all over the ducks. The cool thing is they got a cinnamon out of it, so that was pretty cool. That youth hunt, I think they pulled 5 or 6 cinnamons out of that Overton area. So
you did. You took a youth out up in Alamo, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did you have any cinnamon tail up that way?
we did. We saw, I think, 5.
5 cinnamon.
Yeah. They didn't come in, but we were set up kind of in a flooded field. But
Yeah. That's weird that the cinnamon were back so early. They usually don't come back until later, I've noticed.
it's been earlier and earlier every year.
yeah, and it's the weather's weird this year. I mean, it was warm again. I mean, it's been flashing between warm and cool, and it was 70 degrees out here today. I mean, so they're starting to make their way up north because it's not cold.
Yeah.
And if it's not cold, they're like, oh, might as well move. And they've kind of followed the weather patterns, and animals are pretty smart, man. They
know.
Squirrels, they say that you can tell when you're going to have a hard winter when the squirrels start stashing more food, and they start stashing food earlier, then you know it's going to be a hard winter. So in their mind, they know it's going to be rough, and they need to increase that food storage. So
You got a local squirrel you keep an eye on?
heck yeah,
What's his name?
Cody.
Oh. Just because he likes his nuts doesn't make him a squirrel. Anyways, so on the off season again, what are you doing to get ready for the next season?
I think my biggest thing this off season is going to be trying to improve my goose calling.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing that I need to work on. I think I'm a good goose caller, but I don't think I have definitely a long way to go. So I think that's gonna be my biggest thing, is trying to be better goose calling.
What about working with your dog? I know it's up at the trainer. What trainer is that? Is it at?
It's up in Nephi,
Do
Utah.
you want to give him a shout out? Who is it? Tyson?
Tice Erickson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw him at the dog trails. He's a cool guy.
He's gonna have both of our dogs, and
Yeah.
seems like a great dude.
Do you think he's gonna? Well, no, all his dogs were tuned up. Man.
Yeah,
his
they're
dogs all
solid.
passed juniors. His dogs.
I think he had a couple senior dogs.
Did you watch
I
him?
think he had a couple senior dogs that did pretty well.
Yeah, he was tuned up. He did a good job. He ran a lot of Goldens. I don't know what that says about him, but anyways. So what do you think are your dogs gonna be ready by the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think so. So we're gonna have 2. So we have 2 puppies right now. So he's gonna have both those, and I think obviously we have Ruff still, our older dog.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever dog is ready by the time season starts, I'll probably take it up north with me.
Yeah. What do you do any work with your dogs on the off season, or just?
Yeah, I mean, we're not great at it, if I'm being honest.
Uh-huh.
But usually our biggest time to work with Ruff is during dove season. That's his tune-up, his getting ready for duck season, and it's usually does pretty well.
So you take him out dove hunting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What about your decoys, man? What do you do? What do you look for in your decoys? Which ones do you get rid of? How do you wash them? How do you store them? What do you do with your decoys?
We have all of our decoys are in 12 slotted bags. So we put them away, and if they're not clean, we'll clean them, and then we'll just stack them on a shelf and
What do you clean them with?
just water, spray them off with the hose.
You don't use dish soap? You don't scrub them down at all?
Nope.
Just with the hose, that's it?
Yep.
Man, I see a lot of guys online putting a spray on them so they're more shiny.
I don't really
You know?
like shiny decoys.
You
Yeah,
don't like shiny
I'd
decoys?
rather. I think
Yeah.
the shiny decoys they're gonna flash a little bit weird, right?
Yeah.
They catch that light. That's why one of the reasons I changed my sunglasses. So Bex has I always wear Bex sunglasses, but everything I had was a mirrored lens, and I got to thinking to myself, that's just you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because the
Yeah.
sun hits it right, and now it's flashing those birds, and it just gives them one more thing that they don't like. So I think if your decoys are kind of shiny, that's going to be something that's not natural. You're not going to see a duck in the wild that's
It's
going to
shiny.
flash.
Yeah. And I think there's a big thing to look at is when you're looking at a group of ducks, they look straight black. At a distance, all ducks look black. Like you'll see.
I guess that's true. They all look like silhouettes, huh?
And if you look, that's why flock decoys, in my opinion, work the best because there's no shine to them whatsoever, and at a distance they look black.
What about these teal and these like the teal and the widgeon? If you look at some of those newer decoys, like from Avery, they have a little sheen to them on the head.
Yeah, I mean the head you're gonna see. I mean, there's not like a big flash like you'll see out of like a reflector or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's kind of an iridescent color almost.
They
kind
shine.
of more natural.
The mallard green, there's some shine to it.
Well, I know the last set of decoys I got, I can't even remember what the Avian X. So the Avian X are all, I mean, they're all a dull decoy. They're not a flashy, bright decoy.
But those are gadwalls.
They were gadwalls, but I got some mallards that are the same, and I think the mallards were the Greenhead Pros, and they were kind of along the same area. But it's like we were talking with Ruben about the new thing that a lot of guys are doing is setting straight black ducks, and the reason they're setting black ducks is because they're easier to see from long distances. So that there's some truth to that. Everything looks black, but if it's already black, you're going to be able to see it from a longer distance away as well. So, you set black ducks, and I know there's a lot of guys setting Magnum decoys kind of for the same reason because they give that black silhouette, but they're bigger, so obviously a duck's going to see them from farther off. What I don't like about them is they're so big sometimes that I think the ducks get close, and they're like, yeah, no, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
No,
But
go ahead.
another thing is to think about is the old black and white silhouettes for goose hunting. That's kind of making a comeback with Dive Bomb and Big Al and stuff. They're coming out with a lot of black and white decoys that people are mixing into their spreads, and it kills birds. There's no way explaining it. It just simply kills birds.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Something I do on the off season to get ready is I will start picking up the new sets of decoys I want. Like I'll be like, man, I really wish I had 10 more gadwalls. On my hit list this year is those silhouettes, those goose silhouettes. And then other things I had to think of for Battleborn Ductors is I have to think of, if I want to bring another guy, we need to get another layout blind. Because a lot of these new hunters don't have that.
Layout blinds and waders and, all that stuff that you wouldn't think about. And to be honest with you, right now, you better be thinking about buying some ammo.
Stocking up on some shells.
Because that's going to be a big issue now. What's happened is before the steel shot wasn't taken, right? Because people don't want to shoot steel over lead if they can avoid it. But what's happened is there's no lead available. So the guys that would normally never touch steel are going and buying up all the steel that they can because they couldn't get anything in lead. So I think it's pretty important to start looking for some deals on ammo. If you have a specific brand, especially that you prefer to shoot, you may not be able to just go to the store and grab it like you had in the past. I know I shot hypersonic last season.
We couldn't find it.
Remington went bankrupt, and so Remington's ammunition division hadn't got picked up at that point. Now that's been picked up by Vista Outdoors, whoever their ammunition division is. But Vista Outdoors bought that Remington brand, so hopefully they'll start making that ammo again because that's what I like to shoot, and it shoots different than other ammos, so I don't have to lead as far. So for me, I had to make an adjustment this season with slower ammo. So I had to lead some more than I had in the past. And so it's something you got to start getting stuff straight, get your guns, if you need work on your guns, get them into the gunsmith. Or if you're looking at, you don't want to buy a new shotgun first day of duck season and try to figure out how it's going to shoot during the season if you can avoid it. So all these things play into how you're going to be successful for that next season. Ron and I, we've started every time we can find a decent deal on a set of waders, especially if we can get them used, we'll try to grab them and just throw them in the stock because we do take a lot of guys out hunting that don't have that opportunity to necessarily buy waders, or they don't want to buy them if they don't know what they're going to want to hunt or not. So, we can have all that stuff and you get all that stuff together, and the jackets now is a great time to buy, all of that stuff, jackets and waders. And
I just got a great deal on the ones on Rogers, man. I picked those up, and I'm really excited to try them out.
Rogers waders?
The Rogers.
Yeah, you got a set of breathable 2-in-1s.
Yeah, those are sweet.
You used the Sickas this year, man. What'd you think about them? Use the crap out of them, man. So you could give an honest review on them.
Okay, so I hunted over 40 times in them this year.
Yeah.
And
breaking ice, running fields.
Yeah. So I put them through a lot, and I actually just sent them in for warranty, and I had 3 holes that I could see. The crotch blew out completely, like that big of a hole, like 6-7 inch hole in it. And then I had a hole in my heel and a hole right below my knee, like in the shin area. I loved them though. Mm-hmm. They were great waders. They're super warm, but not too warm, if you know what I mean. And they were super light. I loved them, but they did have quite a bit.
Have you used other waders that hard and not ruined them?
No.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it. So the big thing about Sitka is the price, right? Yeah. So you're looking at what, $900.
Yep.
So you're looking at $900 for a set of waders, but Ron just bought a pair of Rogers breathables that cost you what?
$200 on sale.
$200.
Like $5.
But if Ron blows those out the first 2 weeks of duck season,
you're screwed. Right?
He's out
$200.
No warranty, right? Yeah, you're done. Yeah, you can patch them, but with the Sitka, for the life of those waders, you just send them back, and they'll fix them with the same materials they made them with. Yeah. So not only are you getting it may be a patch, but it's going to be a patch that's the same way that's made the way Sitka makes their waders, right? So you're getting the light product when you're done. So if you think about it, if you can hunt that set of waders for 5 years,
you get your money back. 100%.
You get your money back, yeah. And so they're expensive, but there's some value to it too, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's what I was asking Gannon, because I mean, I think it's always nice to ask somebody that bought them rather than buy them and then be like, this wasn't worth it. Yeah. So, and
you can spend $1,000 on a set of waders, or you can spend $100 on a set of waders. It's just all depends. And I've had some Sportsman's Warehouse, some of those Rustic Ridge waders.
Old Rustic Ridge.
I've had them for 3 years. And, I just bought a new pair just to buy a new pair and gave the other ones to my other kid.
You don't go that hard. Yeah. You don't blow them out if you only go once a season.
But no, and so, I mean, there's some value to be had with some of that stuff. And you can, if you're only going twice a season, it's not worth paying $1,000 for a set of waders.
For sure. Yeah.
It's also not worth paying $2,000 for a shotgun. But if you're going to go every single weekend or 3 or 4 times a week, comfort's going to keep you hunting in the field a little bit longer. So if you can be comfortable and you can have a good gun that's comfortable to shoot and you can shoot it for a long time, I think it's worth the money sometimes. Yeah,
if you're going to do something you enjoy, might as well make it enjoyable. Just because you're cheap and you enjoy doing it doesn't mean you have to rough it. If you have the means, I think you absolutely should figure out what the gear is. And a good thing about duck hunters is a duck hunter will never tell you where to go. If you're like, how's Overton? Where should I go get? He'll be like, Overton is great. Any of the blinds are awesome. Every single duck hunter is going to give you that answer. Hey, where'd you shoot those at? In Overton. They're not going to be like, I shot it on blind 40 at this time of the day. This is how I said it. They're not going to tell you that. But any duck hunter will tell you what gear they like and why they use it.
Well, and if you do tell somebody what blind you're shooting everything from on Facebook, you're probably not going to have friends very long, right? Because if you put in your time, you put in the work, you're going to know what blinds are hot that season. So, and it changes. It's not the same blind every season. It's not the same group of blinds. We hunted totally different blinds this year than we did last year.
Well, no, it's not even every season. It's every week.
Yes. And so what I've seen is, Gannon and I we went out last year and we got some banded geese. And before we even got out of the blind, Ron had sent a picture to somebody, and that person went on Facebook and told everybody exactly where we were sitting. And that's not a.
It's probably
but it's not.
I don't hold grudges.
What happens though is you've put in the work to find the birds, and now somebody else is giving everybody your effort and your work. Yep. And part of duck hunting is you have to put in the work. If you're going to be successful, you have to put in the work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, and we'll help guys. We'll take guys to some of our spots that when they go with us. But we also talk to them a lot about, hey, this is between you and I, and this is
or this spot I don't care about. You can share it with everybody.
Yeah,
everybody already knows. So if you want to tell somebody a spot, this is the one to tell them.
Yeah, that's true.
I know Gannon's been pretty good with us, and we'll call we'll call Gannon. No, we have
It's
a
mutual
relationship.
relationship because
Yeah.
I'll tell Gannon, he'll be like, hey, this is where I saw this. And
We have
Gannon
a
will be
pretty good
like,
relationship, but we'll, a lot of times if we're hunting the same lake, we'll meet at the gas station just on happenstance, and they'd be like, hey, where are you guys going? Well, we're going to go over here. And then it'll be like, well, if I were you, I might go over here and try this section over here. And it's just, you can share that information back and forth, but we also have a relationship where we do that. So we're going to give Gannon and John as much information as they give us. If we see birds in, we're like, hey, birds are in over here, so we're not going to keep that to ourselves. And they do a really good job. We're pretty lucky to have them sometimes because they'll be like, hey, this is where the birds are working. This is where, we're going to go over here, but this is where we'd set if we were you. So,
Yeah, I sent you a couple pins last season.
dude, you send me pins all the time. Yeah, Gannon's always been good to me. No, and also along with that, when you're out, and you're hunting by yourself and the birds aren't working, you're like, I wonder if I was over here if it'd be good, and then if your buddy's over there, then you don't have to wonder. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes I made this year, and I made it 3 times I could distinctly remember, is getting up and walking away. Like walking away and going somewhere else, I should have just sat my butt down.
well, sometimes that's, and it's hard because sometimes that's what you need to do is just sit there and suck it up, right? Sometimes you sit there and suck it up and you're not shooting any birds for the day. It really is difficult. I mean, but we know a lot of the places we hunt, we kind of know the pattern of the birds, right? So there's some places that the birds are going to come in super early in the morning and then they're not going to be back. They're not going to come back until after shooting light. There's other places we hunt where you have some birds come in the morning, you'll have some come a couple hours later, you might have some come in the afternoon, but it's that time you've spent in those spots to know what those areas work like. So, you've got some areas that are pretty big that, they'll jump from one lake to another lake. And the hard part is if nobody's on one of those lakes, they're not moving those birds. And you'll push the birds. When you start shooting birds on a lake, they'll move to another lake. So the good thing we try to do is if we go out in a particular areas with Gannon and John, they're going to be out hunting somewhere else. We try to be on a completely separate lake from them, and that way you have 2 opportunities to kind of push birds back and forth a little bit.
Keeps the birds moving around.
So if there's 6 lakes there, you have 2 of them. Somebody else might be hunting 2 or 3 more. You have a lot better chance of keeping those birds moving and having opportunities at birds.
No, I absolutely agree with that. That going back to my mistake of getting up and walking too early. Went on a goose hunt with Gannon at one point, and we did okay in the morning. We got a few, and then I said, I'm gonna get up and walk. And it's like, if you want to, man, but I wouldn't. And I was like, I'm gonna get up and walk. He's like, well, then go do it, man. And so I get up and start walking, and I got a few shots off, and I duck down because I see this goose coming to the spread, and I'm ducked down. And it lands, and it's still standing there. So I call Gannon, I'm like, hey, you gonna shoot that goose? And Gannon's like, okay, Ron. Like, whatever, man. You're a dummy. There ain't no goose there. And then he stands up at her. Boom! he didn't see it land either.
I might have been on TikTok.
But that just taught me that sometimes you just gotta stay put. If you stay put, they'll come in. And I made that mistake earlier in the year too. I was set up, and I me, I have a hard time sitting still. Brian's watched me, Gannon's watched me, and I think that's something I'm going to really work on next year is just trying to sit still and not get up and walk.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Of course you do.
He only adjusts his decoys like 25 times between shooting light and an hour later. So
Gannon adjusts decoys more than I do, man. I'm talking about not getting up and walking and leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I adjust decoys a lot, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, why do you adjust decoys? How do you know you need to adjust decoys?
Well, the problem is sometimes where we hunt, we get the wind shifting, swirling all around. I mean, if you got a 10-mile-an-hour wind and it's shifting, go south to north or comes right into your face, you got to switch it up. But I don't know. If the birds aren't doing it exactly how I want them to, then I'll try to switch it up until they are.
What do you mean? You'll just move decoys and make more pockets?
Yeah, I'll make it to where they're finishing right in front of my face instead of 20 yards out side shooting them.
So if you see a duck finish 20 yards out, how do you move your decoys? Do you throw the decoys out where it landed?
Is the wind right on my back or?
I don't know. Tell me.
Okay,
Like,
so
let's say
when-
the wind's at your back and they land 20 feet out.
I would probably bring the decoys in closer. Yeah. Then make the hole right in front of me if they're landing in that hole. If they're not, if they're just landing on the outside of the decoys, then I'll just push the decoys in and see how that works.
Okay. What's another scenario that you'd move the decoys out further? Do you always pull them in or do you move them out further?
No, sometimes we'll move them out farther. Because if the wind shifts straight in our face and the birds are trying to come over our back, we'll push them out farther, and they usually come right over our back and try to land in with the decoys, and that's usually right where we're at.
See, that's interesting. See, I've never understood why I'm moving the decoys. I'm just like, they're not landing where I want. I better throw it where they landed. So, and then Brian's like, "You're so stupid. Stop moving the decoys." I'm like, "I got you. There's nowhere to walk around here."
And I think you can tell a lot of times if the birds are coming in and they're consistently coming in, they get to a certain point and they flare out, something's not right.
Yeah.
So they're either seeing something in your blends they don't like, and a lot of times it's guys moving, right, or guys that are just exposed, or they're seeing something in that decoy spread that they don't like, something that's not natural. And so one of the big problems we have is you get out to Overton, and I think there were more days that there was no wind than there were days that there was wind. And so those decoys are just sitting there perfectly still with no motion. If you don't add something into that spread to give it a little bit of motion to make those ducks move a little bit, I know Ron kind of makes fun of me a little bit, but I got some packable decoys that are super lightweight. And the thing is, no, they're not Dakotas. I got them from a thrift store. I just happened to find them at a thrift store. But they are super, super light. So, I mean, I'm talking like 1 mile an hour of wind, and those things are moving. So if you know it's going to be a day and you have access to something like that, then I think it can help your hunt a little bit, because there's some movement in there that you wouldn't normally expect. And we saw Scott has a rippler that he had that was, I don't even know how old this thing is. It's probably from the 80s. I mean, it's weird. It's got a little switch under his beak, and I have never seen a rippler put off that much motion.
Really?
I mean, it's just amazing, to the point where I looked up the patent on it so we can see if we can start kind of try to mimic it, because it's not made anymore. So if we can mimic that and get a little bit more motion out of our decoys, then it'd be worth it.
Do you think the ducks are looking for the ripples on the water? Or are they looking for the movement in the ducks?
Both.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think both, definitely.
When
So if you use some of those buses going in the water like this, it might not do it as well.
I mean, any sort of movement in the water I think is going to help, but I don't know. That's why I love hunting like a river or something, because you always have movement no matter what.
Yeah.
That's what we hunted mostly in Idaho, so we never had to worry about that. But at the times where we did get on a lake and there was no wind, even at times, we'd get on the bank and we'd kick water to get motion out there. And then once the birds got closer, we'd stop, and it worked.
When I think the motion, you're going to get both out of a motion decoy, whether it's a rippler or whether you got a jerk string or however you want to do it. That those ripples in the water are going to transfer into the decoys next to it, and those decoys are then going to move. So you're kind of getting the ripples out of the water where it would say, hey, there's a duck moving here, but those ripples are also affecting all the other decoys in that spread. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 out of those a little bit.
Have you ever tried any of those automatic jerk strings on the motor mounts?
Yeah, we bought one, I think, but it didn't come with all the parts we needed, so we never used it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw one advertised on Facebook. You probably saw it too, Brian. We get the same advertisements. And it said that it was activated by duck calls. So when you start going, wah, 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 when you start blaring on your call, it hears that sound, starts pulling the rig.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was thinking, man, those, because I remember when we hunted those geese the one time, we had it set up on a jerk rig. And it worked really well. And so I was thinking maybe next year I'm going to try to get a jerk rig going.
The hard part about that stuff like that, man, is we already drag a bunch of stuff out, right? So you're dragging a couple dozen decoys out. You're dragging in your waders. A lot of times we're walking in, however far you're going to walk in, whether it's 500 yards, a half mile, whatever it is. And then you got your guns, you got your ammo. We start adding automatic jerk strings, and now you've got a jerk rig, plus you've got a battery to go with it, plus you've got all the stuff to set it up on the shore part of it. So the more stuff you add, sometimes it just becomes too much and too cumbersome.
Hey, but you ain't going to complain if you shoot a limit over it.
Well, you never complain if you shoot a limit, but I mean, It's just something. I mean,
There's a time and place for it.
yeah. And I don't think you'd want to take it out every single time, but I think if it was really calm, that's a good time to take it. I mean, the day that Gannon and I got those geese out in Overton is, you were pulling the jerk string. That was kind of by plan, so Gannon and I could actually shoot, and you couldn't. but you were pulling that, and it gives. There's something there with that motion that gets their attention. And again, of course, was on a goose call, and Gannon talking about I need to work my goose call, but man, those geese turned as soon as he started on a goose call, and they were just right into him.
Yeah, that's what my goal is this year, is to work on the goose call too. But yeah, it's hard to pull that jerk string and run the call and watch the ducks all at the same time. Like,
watch your dog. You got a lot of stuff.
It reminds me like one of those guys playing like the drum with the kick thing and like the banjo and the kazoo in his mouth all at the same time while he sings. That's what it feels like.
One man band.
Yeah.
And that's it's kind of funny because one of the things that I've seen out in Overton a lot is especially when the geese start flying, right? So there's a population of geese out here that are never coming into the game preserve.
Yeah.
They circle the edge of it, they go right to Pierce Place, and that's where they're going to go. But as soon as somebody sees them, you just hear for the next 20 minutes nonstop goose calls.
Off topic a little bit, but I saw that place is for sale.
Yes, it is.
So he wants like $750,000.
Is that coming to an end, or what's happening?
Like as a real estate thing, I've heard of several things. I heard he bought a place down the road still.
But he also is not selling the main house as part of that deal. So if you look at it, the house is like tiny that belongs to that section. But it's a great duck habitat. I mean, it would be a great place to buy just to go.
I heard Endow already has the water rights to it, though.
You'd smash limits on that nonstop.
But they're both his properties are for sale.
Yes, both sides of the freeway. I can't remember. I told Ron about it. It was like $750 for the one that I saw, and it was 26 acres or something like that.
I already looked at it. I don't think it's worth the deal, especially if you don't have the water rights.
If you don't have the water rights, the water rights are expensive, cost prohibitive out here too.
Common water rights they sell for around $30,000 a piece.
Yeah, that's
more. Do you think?
That's restricted water rights. So as soon as there's a drought, you lose your water rights. So, and right now we're in the middle of one of the biggest droughts we've had in a long time. So I mean, it's super dry. But yeah, I think the funny thing is we're talking about the calling. So what we'll see in Overton is guys will get on that goose call, and it'll be nonstop for 20 minutes. Those geese aren't even paying attention. They're not even turning.
No.
You got to understand that. Why are you calling? So you're calling to get that duck's attention or that goose's attention. If it's not working within the first few times you blow that call, it's not working. Either it's something that they don't want, or they're on another mission. There are ducks that are going to fly over your blind that are going to be on a completely different mission. They're on the move. You're never going to get them down to your decoys. That's just part of the deal. They're going either from A to B, and they have a purpose for being there. But what Ron and I saw this year is, Ron and I aren't great duck callers. I mean,
we've got a little bit better.
We got better, but
better than I was.
When we call together, we would turn a lot more ducks.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
And a lot of guys, they don't know when they're calling. So they're calling, a duck's coming right in your face, and they're just blaring on the kazoo, right? And some of them are pretty bad. But you really want to hit them when they're going away from you, because the idea is you want to catch their attention and bring them back to you. So if you're blowing it right in their face, that's not natural for them, right? Yeah. So it's gonna be something sketchy. I'm not going in there. So they're gonna find somewhere else to be that's quiet. And if you listen, especially places like Overton that gets really overhunted. I mean, it honestly does get overhunted during the season.
It's the country club, man. It's open to everybody.
Those ducks, once shooting light comes, don't make a peep.
Go silent.
They're not making a lot of noise when they're flying. Now the geese is a different story. The geese, they're pretty vocal. Oh yeah. But those ducks are quiet. So you're going to start blaring on your duck call, and that's not what the ducks are doing. So
you gotta give them what they want.
And when you get new flocks in, I mean, you'll get some noise out of some of the new flocks, but it's pretty rare during the regular season to get a lot of noise out of ducks. Out in Overton.
Well, I mean, if the ducks are in the blind, they're really loud, man. All those guys trying to be ducks.
Yep.
Hey, but let me ask you a question. Like Brian brought up, me and him call at the same time, and we're average now. We're not horrible. When it comes to geese, if you have 3 experienced goose callers all in the same blind, does that make a difference?
Yeah, at times. But so me and my dad are usually, if it's me and my dad, we're usually both either calling or either one of us just calls. So I mean, the geese we're hunting are very pressured. So we honestly we don't call a lot. Like there was multiple times this year where we had groups coming in and both of us weren't even making a peep.
Really?
Yeah. It just depends on the situation, obviously. Like,
but those geese are hollering all over the place.
Sometimes they're not.
Really?
Though. Yeah, sometimes geese will get up and they just won't make a peep. And if they don't make a peep, you don't make a peep. That's what I always do. I try to mimic what they're doing. If they're super loud and excited, I get super loud and excited. But if they're not making a sound, I don't make sound.
Really? See, I always thought the louder the better with geese.
That depends if they're migrators or whatever. If we're in the Midwest, then
yeah.
Holler away.
Yeah.
But they're also getting flights of 300, 400, 500 birds coming in at the same time, so they're not going to be quiet. You know, there's strength in numbers, and you know anything you do with duck hunting or goose hunting, the goal is to mimic what the birds are doing, right?
Give the people what they want.
You want to set a decoy spread that's going to work. Figure out what the ducks are doing. Figure out how they're setting. When you're not there, figure out what the ducks look like. If you can do that and you can set up pretty close to that, those ducks are going to be comfortable with that environment. If the ducks are really loud, then you can be really loud. If the geese are really loud, you can be really loud. But if they aren't making any sound, there's a reason for it, right? They've known they're a prey animal. So at a certain point, a prey animal is going to do whatever it has to do to survive. And sometimes that's shut the heck up, right? Because you don't want anybody to know you're coming in because that gives away your location and then you become prey, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important that, you spend some time, even off season, even if it's just off season, getting out and seeing what the birds are doing when they're sitting on the water. But it works a lot better if you can do it while you're hunting in the areas you're hunting.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing I did this season is I watched a spot that was loading up with ducks, and they would be mostly quiet, and then once the group would come in, they would get loud, start feed chuckling and stuff, and hitting calls, and then once they landed, just go dead silent again. And so I put that into that next hunt that day when we hunted it, and it was that same thing. We tried not calling, and they didn't really want it, but then once we start ripping on that call when they're in the air, they loved it.
They loved it.
And so we'd have, mostly it was me, Taylor, and a guy named Dylan up there that we were hunting with. It was mostly the three of us. And we have a spot where we were hunting, and it's a big lake. It's a traffic area. You're usually not hunting the X, and we would have to rail the call. Absolutely all of us on it, all three of us, as loud as we could for the birds to work.
To get in return.
Yeah. But
I wonder if that's the difference between Idaho birds and Nevada birds.
It's different scenarios, though. It's like we weren't on the X, so we had to make it seem like the X was right here, right where they wanted to be.
Oh, so you're just pulling them.
Yeah.
We were pulling them, making it sound like the X.
Yep.
Well, and they're newer birds too, right? So they haven't had quite as much hunting pressure as they have when you get down south here. So they've been shot at a little bit up north in Canada, and they hit that Idaho area, and they get hunted throughout the state as they come down. But once they leave Idaho, man, they've been shot at quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, what would work in
life experience?
Yeah, what works in Idaho isn't going to work when you get to southern Nevada. What works in northern Nevada is probably not going to work
exactly
in southern Nevada.
It's all about the areas you're hunting.
If I were to change anything about this year, I changed it more this year than I did the year before. Is I love hunting early season ducks down here. I think there's just more of them. I think they decoy better. I think you can shoot a lot more early season than late season, and it's a lot easier. So if I put a emphasis on when I'm hunting, it's going to be early season. I made a mistake of having a lot of big game hunts that got in the way of my duck hunting. I never thought I'd have that problem. I never think, hey, you know what? These big game hunts really get in the way of my duck hunting. But then after seeing the early season ducks for the late season ducks, I'm like, well, maybe I'll try the big game hunts late season and do the duck hunting early season.
And you get it. I mean, you do get some pretty distinct waves of birds come through, right? So you get early we're going to get a bunch of teal in. Usually the beginning of the season.
They never left this year.
There's teal everywhere, right? Yeah, the teal were pretty late this year. They stayed most of the season. But then you'll start getting your gaddies and stuff like that will come in kind of just after teal kind of go out, and the gaddies and stuff come in. So you'll get a flight of gaddies and stuff in, but then they get over hunted pretty quick. And you've got a month or two that's kind of what's there. And you'll get the pintails that'll come in. And this year, man, I don't know what it was, but there were more pintails down here than I think I've ever seen down here. I mean, it was incredible.
What do you think, Gannon?
Yeah. I had a couple times where we could have shot 21 plus pintail. Easy.
Really?
Well, Ron had one, he almost over limited on pintails. So
Ever tell you that story?
Let's hear
Old
it.
Green Jeans snuck up on me, man.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I was with my buddy Scott, and I've already told this story in the podcast. I'll tell it again, though. And we'd already shot one pintail, and then another, like, two were circling us. And I could tell that one was a pin, but I couldn't tell the second one wasn't. But they were flying in a pair. And I hear, I'm going to let you work these birds, and I'll check you. And
You're like, uh-oh.
I look back, and there he is, like, hiding under the ground. I'm like, man, you sneaky. And anyways, we dropped one, thank goodness. We dropped him right on the dike at 9. And he's like, I'll pick it up. I was like, no, that's my dog's job, man. You check my license and give me a ticket if you want. Anyways, my dog picked it up, and as a pintail, he's like, oh, looks like you're done on pintails for the day. I'm like, looks like it.
good thing we missed on the second one.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of the challenges.
If you're in Overton, you're going to get checked by the game
Oh,
warden.
yeah.
Be ready for it.
And that's one of the challenges we had this year in Overton is, you know, we got some new game wardens come through. Our game warden that was the resident out there, he retired, and so it left some spots open. And man,
Gannon's best friend, Mr. Geis.
there's some challenges, and as hunters, we need to have that friendly conversation with them on how to properly come out and check and when to come out and check.
Yeah, not right at shooting.
Well, yeah, and then what was happening is they were not only were they coming in right during the heavy hunt, right during the prime hunting time, they're coming in, but they're driving their trucks in, and so they're blowing all the birds out. And I know the game preserve manager had some conversations with some of them about, hey, yeah, you're going to piss everybody off because you're ruining their hunt.
Yeah.
You know, and the game warden can come check me every single day. I don't care,
Yeah,
but don't
exactly.
ruin my hunt. That's all we're asking. We're just asking for a little respect sometimes. And
If we're not allowed to drive on it, I mean, you shouldn't drive on it unless there's an active violation. Like, unless you see someone drop a swan, then you can hustle out there and make sure you get them busted.
Yeah, but you walk out there like everyone else has to. You know what I mean?
You're going to catch more people.
yeah, you're going to sneak up on them. And, you know, the funny thing is I watch the game wardens, they sit in a particular spot. And it's funny because you just start hearing the phones ring, you know, because everybody knows they're up there. And if they actually got out and went on foot and just went and did blind checks, that's where you're going to find the violations a lot of times. Because
Hey, you can sit and
There's
watch
plenty of
guys.
people to get caught out.
there's a lot of people out there this year that had no clue what the heck they were doing. They had no clue what they were shooting at. They had no clue what legal birds were, what illegal birds were.
You were out there that one
what
day. You
limits
guys told
were.
Gannon that story where they said it was like the best Overton day ever, and I wasn't there.
Was that the day we were in 5?
Yeah.
So first off, we're sitting in 5, and 4 has a mojo set up on our water. That was the first thing of the day, and I'm like, it's in the corner. I'm like, whatever. And you know, it's not bad, but we had some pins and stuff coming in, and we're doing okay on ducks. And then this pintail came in, and that back corner right by 4, this pintail came in probably 30 yards into the pond, sits right down in that corner. That's pretty normal for them. These idiots jump out of 4, run down the road, and start shooting at ducks on 5. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? But then it gets better because these rocket scientists, professional duck hunters, go back in and they're standing in that brush area back there. It's not a whole lot of cover to start with. So they're out of their blind, which it is what it is. They're standing straight up, and each of them has a single palm frond. And they're holding it in front of their face, standing there.
Hey, you got to be sneaky out there, man. On them ducks.
And you could totally see their silhouette, and they're just standing there, both of them with a palm frond. And I was just like, are you kidding me,
You're
dude?
like, I listened again. Number one rule, camo.
Yeah, cover.
Check boxes.
And it finally got to the point. That was one of the days. I'm usually
Did something
I know
happen
it's-
in another blind too, though?
do what?
Something happened in another blind.
Oh yeah,
the
well
same day.
that particular day there's
There's a lot of stuff.
some seagulls that got dropped and some.
A sandhill.
I think a sandhill got
Yeah.
dropped. It was pretty bad to the point where I have a local page that it was just
I saw
on
that,
fire. And the thing is, these guys, I got to the point. Normally, I'm pretty pretty good. I know it's Overton. I know it's going to suck. I know people are going to be idiots. That's just part of the game out in Overton. That's
what you
the
signed up
frustrating
for.
part. I actually got to the point where I started yelling at the guys across from us because they were just ridiculous. And normally that's just not me. But it got to the point where it was just out of control.
Sometimes it's got to happen.
You're always hollering, man.
I should holler more.
What's that guy for Duck Dynasty, the old guy with the beard?
Sigh.
Papa Cy, bluff number
But
5.
who's the most popular guy on Duck Dynasty?
Brian Burris.
Uncle Cy.
Cy. Anyways, well, you got any other tips to add for late season, Gannon? Anything else?
I'm good.
Man, I sure appreciate having you here and you helping me
thanks
and
for
Brian
having
out
me.
so much, man. And that we had a scare last week with Gannon. You remember? We were driving home. Someone said he was about to get married.
Oh, a couple weeks
I don't know
ago.
where that rumor came
That
from.
came during the youth hunt. I always had boys on the blind with me, and they're like, Gannon's getting married. He's moving back to Idaho to get married. I'm like, dude, Gannon doesn't even have a girlfriend. He ain't got to get married.
I thought not Gannon, man, because once you get married, you're like out of the game for like 4 or 5 years afterwards.
But-
like, there's nothing you could do.
Gannon's boy's getting married. He put his life on the line over there.
Yeah. He's doing it.
Yeah.
He has
Definitely
the
not
biggest-
me. I don't know. I have no clue where that rumor came from, but
I heard it, and Brian's like, "Did you hear Gannon's getting married?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I better call him right now." And Gannon's like, "No, sir."
Yeah, we were driving back. I don't even remember what we were doing. We were driving back from summer runs. I'm calling him right now.
yeah, you said it. I'm like, no, not even close.
Well, you
Not
did
even
talk
close.
about, you only wanted banded women. So, I mean, on the last episode we were on. So,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
banded hens.
Banded hands.
I'll
man.
take those every day.
That's the only type of ring I'm putting on a girl.
Yeah.
you better not say that because you already have a ring on a girl.
I was talking in
Oh,
the
for
perspective
Gannon,
of
yes.
Gannon, sir. No, I already ringed my hen. We're good. So, got 5 little ducklings, so we're all set. So,
You need about 6 more.
no, I don't need no more. I'm out of the trenches. I didn't hunt for. I didn't hunt much like ducks until I moved out here. And Mitchell was 9 at the time. That was 9 years. 9 years, Gannon. Don't do it, man. You should. You should do it.
I don't know, I
If
gotta-
you want to.
It's not anywhere in the near future.
If you find
so
the right one, think really hard before you do it.
Make sure you get her out in a duck blind and see how she does because
No, make sure. Don't even bring her to the duck blind. See if she can make it through a duck season.
there you go.
If she can make it through a duck
That's the
season,
real
then,
test.
then she might be worth it. She's always like, "You need to come home." Be like, "Hey, this ain't gonna work out."
That's true.
So
Well, I think it was a good time talking with Gannon. We always like having you in, Gannon, and we'll have to hit you up during next season when you're on one of your breaks back south.
Oh yeah.
I know you're going to go up north so you can just slay the geese and the ducks and make us all look like
You guys
losers.
got to come up there.
That'd be awesome to come
Make
up
a
there.
trip up there.
oh, dude, I'd love it. I'm gonna do it this year.
Do it.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna try.
Dude, we'll,
Why won't you?
I'm gonna give you a soft commit. I don't.
we'll make
know.
that a season opener. Instead of doing a Nevada trip, we'll just
Dude,
take a
the
couple
opener-
extra days and go up to Idaho.
The opener's sketchy. I wouldn't do the opener. Wait till they get the first.
I'll wait till
good-
you give me a holler.
Yeah.
How long of a drive is it up there?
It's like 9 hours.
We could do that.
We could do that with our eyes
We could
closed.
do that with our eyes closed. Probably will be closed most of the time.
I mean,
the way up there.
shoot, we've
Brian
do.
says he could do it with his eyes closed because he always falls asleep.
Heck yeah, I ain't
Driving,
stupid.
I'll look over and be like, "Man, that sucker fell asleep," and then all of a sudden he'll like start talking to me. I'm like, "I thought you were dead." So,
Meanwhile, Ron's watching John Wayne movies as he's driving.
yeah, that's where it's at.
Whatever it does, to keep you awake.
Whatever you gotta do, right? Red Bull and John Wayne, man.
We've done quite a few. We do usually go up north for the Friends of NRA meeting, and that's fun. We'll go up on Friday. We'll hunt Friday, drive up there Friday night, have a meeting Saturday. As soon as the meeting's over, we're up in Reno or Elko. We'll drive all the way back home. So it'll just be a straight turnaround.
That won't be
So-
that bad in Idaho.
No.
Is that where you're going? Is Idaho? Or are you going
Yeah.
further north?
Starting it off in Idaho,
Okay.
probably.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see if we can't meet up sometime. But anyways,
It'll be a good time. All right. Well, I think we're about done, huh?
I'm good. I'm good if you good.
Right on. Thanks again, Gannon.
Yeah, thanks for
Remember,
having me.
if you guys are going to go out this weekend, make sure you take somebody with you if you can. If you're going to take somebody with you, make sure you teach them something. If you can't do either of those, make sure you hunt hard.